Welcome to the Shorten Anime channel. Today we'll dive into the latest episode of The Great Ruler. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. The Great Thousand World. It is a place where numerous planes intersect, a place where many clans live, and a place where a group of lords assemble. The heavenly sovereigns appear one by one from the lower planes, and they will all display a legend that others would desire as they pursue the road of being a ruler in this boundless world. In the endless fire territory that the Flame Emperor controls, thousands of fire blazes through the heavens. Inside the martial realm, the power of the Martial Ancestor frightens the heaven and the earth. At the West Heaven Temple, the might of the Emperor of 100 battles is absolute. In the Northern Desolate Hill, a place filled with thousands of graves, the Immortal Owner rules the world. A boy from the Northern Spiritual Realm comes out, riding on a Nine Netherworld Bird, as he charges into the brilliant and diverse world. Just who can rule over their destiny of their path on becoming a great ruler? In the Great Thousand World, many strive to become a great ruler. The Great Ruler, Season 1, Episode 1. The scorching sun was like a flame. The burning sunlight poured down from the sky, causing the entire land to be in transpiration. The slightly drooped willows and the disappearing leaves made it seem like it was sickly in appearance. Within the clearing where the sunlight projected through the branches and leaves, several hundred figures were quietly sitting cross-legged. It was a group of young men and women. At that time, all of them have a serious expression while they close their eyes. They would let out their breaths periodically, showing a rhythmic beat. As they breathe in and out, subtle lights which are difficult to be seen with the naked eye would appear in their surroundings. The gentle breeze blew quietly and caused their clothes to flutter. It was quite a spectacular sight. In front of the hundreds of shadows, there is a stone platform. On top of the stone platform, there too, was a figure quietly sitting cross-legged. His hands were attuned to each other. His fingers were overlapping as he closed his eyes. It was as if he had entered a certain state of cultivation. The figure also had a youthful appearance. He had a soft and slightly disheveled black hair, yet his seemingly innocent face was a little thin. It gave off a very comfortable feeling when others looked at him. At this moment, many lights that could be seen with the naked eye were surrounding the boy. And from those lights, a mysterious energy seemed to be rushing into his body. Below the stone, many youths suddenly opened their eyes. They looked at the lights surrounding the boy on the stone platform and could not resist licking their lips. An envious expression appeared on their faces, and whispers began to destroy the earlier silence. Brother Moo really is amazing. All of us are still sensing the spiritual aura within the world, but he has already successfully entered the spiritual movement stage, as expected from the #1 person in our East Branch Earth class. Huh, that's of course. Don't just mention the East Branch. I think that there aren't many people of the same age who can compare with Brother Moo in the entire Northern Spiritual Academy. A boy in gray clothes that was close to the front seemed to be quite familiar with the boy on the stone platform. He could hear everybody's whispers and could not help but smile. He lowered his voice and said, "Brother Moo is a person who was selected and participated in the spiritual road. Within the entire Northern Spiritual Realm, only Brother Moo obtained the right to participate in it. You should know that the ones who participate in the spiritual road are all monsters, right?" Back then, the entire Northern Spiritual Realm was bustling because of that matter. The people that came out from there will basically be accepted by the 5 great academies. 5 great academies? Many youths heard the words which were extremely dazzling to them and could not help but swallow. A boiling desire filled their eyes. That place could be regarded as the ultimate dream for all the youths. Not only was the selection for the 5 great academies harsh, the ones that could enter them were all geniuses. No matter who enters it, they would have a promising future. Brother Moo really is amazing. But Brother Moo only seemed to have participated in it for a year. I heard others say that Brother Moo is the first person to be kicked out of the spiritual road before the time was over. A boy hesitated and quietly said that. However, he soon added, "All of us know Brother Moo's abilities, even those geniuses that came from all over the world and are inside the spiritual road. Brother Moo will not be inferior to them. He must have been kicked out because he received an unfair treatment." Many boys and girls looked at each other. This matter was not something secret within the Northern Spiritual Academy, and even within the entire Northern Spiritual Realm. While they felt regret from it, they were also quite curious. They wanted to know the reason why the brilliant and slightly arrogant brother Moo that they believed in would be kicked out of the spiritual road. The boy in gray clothes pouted his lips and said in disapproval, it must be that the people in the spiritual road were jealous of brother Moo and they used various means to force him out. But that's fine. With brother Moo's abilities, he will be able to enter the 5 great academies eventually. At that time, people will naturally understand. The youths all understood the message. Although they knew that the brother Moo that they were talking about was extremely talented, but the 5 great academies wasn't that easy to enter. After all, he had only trained in the spiritual road for 1 year. It cannot be mentioned as a successful training. Compared to the geniuses that truly came out of the spiritual road, there should be quite a bit of a difference. Bam! However, just when they were discussing about this, a piece of shattered wood suddenly flew down from the stone platform and hit the forehead of the boy in gray clothes. A scolding voice soon followed. Ling, did you really just treat me as a decoration? You don't think I will inform Teacher Mo and make all of you stay in the East Branch for tutorial training during the next vacation? Many boys and girls hurriedly looked up. They could see that the boy who was training on top of the stone platform had opened up his eyes. The pair of pitch black eyes were like the night sky. The place where the spiritual aura was at the fullest was at the mouth. It was showing a slight smile. The smile was warm and bright, and like a finishing touch, it made the boy's face appear to be more handsome. They must admit that the boy had quite the taste. Hey, Brother Moo, don't! We finally have a break. I still want to head back for some fun. If my father knew that I did something this disgraceful, he would definitely beat me to death. The boy in gray clothes clutched his forehead and let out a smile. The boys and girls in the surrounding all let out sounds of laughter, causing the atmosphere to become quite lively. You also know that your father is quite vicious. If you are not able to advance into the spiritual movement stage in 3 months, you're just waiting to be hit. The boy called Muen shook his head and said with a sigh, How is it that easy to advance into the spiritual movement stage? I am not a monster like you, Brother Moo, who could casually participate in the spiritual road. Ling pouted his mouth and immediately blocked his mouth. Although this matter was not a secret within the entire northern spiritual realm, and Muen did not forbid it, the matter of being kicked out was not a glorious act. The boy called Muen let out a smile. His expression did not change much, and he raised his head slightly. He stared at the branches that were mangled with light spots, and his eyes clearly showed a complex and nostalgic appearance. The spiritual road, huh? I wonder how those people are doing. They should have finished their training already. If that's the case, they will soon be able to enter the 5 great academies. She too. Muen bit his lips. A girl in black dress with a cold and pretty face as well as a slim figure, who would carry a dark black long sword on her back at any time, flashed through his mind. As the image of the beautiful girl moved, her bright silver hair that shone like the Milky Way danced along with the wind. It was this mysterious and cold girl who would make others feel like she was insane when she started training, who chased him for over half a year in the spiritual road in order to kill him. The reason behind it was that he saved her once. This was also the reason why Muen bit his lips. However, when he was finally forced to leave, she was the first one to wield her sword and block the person in front of him without any hesitation. Thinking about the face, which never held a hint of expression and had the potential to cause a disaster, display a slight, cold killing intent, Muen could not resist and fell into a trance. How nostalgic. Oh, isn't it little brother Moo, who was the only one in the northern spiritual realm to participate in the spiritual road? You were bringing others to train again? No wonder Teacher Mo would think highly of you. Just when Muen was immersed in these complex feelings, a slightly stingy voice rang out. His calm face looked up, and he could see a dozen figures walking over slowly. The leader was a boy with an arrogant face. At this moment, he was chewing on some grass and smiled as he looked at Muen. Liu Qiao, what are the West Branch people planning to do over here at the East Branch? Are you looking for a beating? The boy whom Muen referred to as Ling stood up and sneered when he saw the group of people. The hundreds of East Branch students in the open space also stood up. They showed an unwelcoming gaze towards the people that are approaching. With numbers, they had quite the momentum. Within this Northern Spiritual Academy, it is divided into East Branch and West Branch. The 2 branches would often have many competitions, but overall, the West Branch has always been stronger than the East Branch in the past. In front of the West Branch, many East Branch students would avoid them. However, during this 1 year, the situation changed a lot. The reason behind this change was because of the presence of Muen. 3 months ago, in a competition between the 2 Earth-class students of the 2 branches, the number 3 of the West Branch, Zhedong, had lost to Muen. This allowed many East Branch students to finally vent out their feelings and also caused the West Branch to become less arrogant. And now, the people from the West Branch actually ran over to provoke Muen. Ling and the others could not endure this. Oh, so the East Branch is actually becoming more and more cocky. Did you think that with just Muen, you can challenge the West Branch? Liu Chen saw the group of people from the East Branch, yet he did not show any fear. Instead, he lifted up the corner of his mouth and pointed at a high platform nearby and said as he grinned, "Do you dare to test it out with a fight?" Ling and the others looked over. They could see many figures standing at the high platform. These figures were all looking over toward this side, and after seeing the familiar faces, the expression of Ling and the others changed. It's the West Branch's Heaven-class seniors. Within the Northern Spiritual Academy, it is not only split into East and West Branch, it is also divided into Earth and Heaven class, and Muen and them were only in the Earth class. The people standing on the high platform were all seniors of the West Branch Heaven class. Their strength is naturally much more powerful than them. The moment the expression of Ling and the others changed, the Heaven-class seniors all laughed at them from above and began to talk with each other. So that is the East Branch's Muen? He is currently someone famous within the Northern Spiritual Academy and even within the Northern Spiritual Realm. I can't believe he advanced to the spiritual movement stage at such an age. Although it is only the initial phase of the spiritual movement stage, but he has the qualifications to ascend to Heaven class. That's quite amazing. That's pretty good. So a talent finally appears out of the East Branch. When he ascends to the Heaven class, there will probably be a bit of pressure for us. West Branch Heaven class. It was said that this boy was selected to participate in the spiritual road. However, he was kicked out for an unknown reason. It's quite funny. It's the first time I've heard of such a thing. Could it be that it selected the wrong person, so it threw him out? Haha. Among the group, there was a girl in red clothes. She had a slender figure and skin that was just like snow. Her beautiful oval-shaped face was somewhat charming. She leaned against the railing and looked at the open space with her beautiful eyes. Then her gaze stopped at the boy called Muen, as if she had great interest in him. "Ah, Ling, you seem to know Muen, right?" A senior from the Heaven class smiled as he asked. From everyone's position, it is evident that she was the central figure of this small group. Yes, his father is one of the territory lords within the Northern Spiritual Realm. It can be considered that we have some relationship with each other. We played together when we were young, the girl called Ling said casually. It was said that he seemed to like you at first? Ling blinked. She looked at the boy that was sitting straight-legged nearby. At this moment, a beam of sunlight pierced through the branches and leaves and landed directly on the boy's face. It formed a faint light arc, and it was extremely pleasing to the eyes. This caused the girl to stare blankly for a bit. She seemed to vaguely recall the boy that chased after her butt when she was little. Only back then, he did not have any compelling features. She, too, did not pay much attention to him. However, who would have imagined that this boy, who had grown apart from her, would actually become the only one to receive the qualifications to participate in the spiritual road in the Northern Spiritual Realm? Back then, Muen was quite the celebrity, but that too began to fade when he was suddenly kicked out of the spiritual road. That was when we were young. How could that be considered as liking me? Ling let out a smile as if she did not care, but her eyes stared at Muen once more. Right now, the latter had followed her and entered the Northern Spiritual Academy. He then began to reveal his outstanding talents. Although he has not become the #1 in the Northern Spiritual Academy, the fact that this excellent person liked her gave her some face. Even if she knew that deep inside, this matter was more like a rumor, but a girl would still feel some pride in it at this age. Ha 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 ha, Ling's taste isn't that normal. Although this Muen is quite good, but he still hasn't made Ling fall for him. Could it be that you didn't see that even Lin Shu failed? That is a superb individual who is ranked 7th in the Northern Spiritual Academy. He has already advanced to the spiritual movement middle phase. There is quite a gap between him and Muen. It seems that the only one within the Northern Spiritual Academy who could make Ling take a second look is big brother Liu Mubai. The moment the name Liu Mubai was mentioned, even the expressions of the Heaven class seniors paused for a bit as if they felt a little pressure. Ranked first in the Northern Spiritual Academy, Liu Mubai, his father is also the largest territory lord in the Northern Spiritual Realm, and he was famed for his great strength. Whether it was appearance or strength, or even his background, it is a name that would easily attract a number of infatuated girls within the Northern Spiritual Academy. In the eyes of the West Branch students, everybody knew that Liu Mubai and Hong Ling were quite close. Although he has not yet plucked the prideful flower of the West Branch, but it should just be a matter of time before that happens. If Mu Chen were to successfully pass through the trial of the spiritual road and obtain the qualifications to enter the 5 great academies, that fame would naturally surpass Liu Mubai. Unfortunately, he was somehow kicked out of there. As a result, no matter who, when they compared the two of them, they would only laugh at Mu Chen. Su Ling and the others stared at the West Branch seniors on the high platform. Their imposing manner also became slightly weaker, especially when they saw the girl known as Hong Ling. Their eyes became passionate at first, then shrank down. She is a truly influential person within the Northern Spiritual Academy. There are quite a few followers even within the East Branch for her. Oi, Brother Moo, that is the West Branch's senior Hong Ling. There was a rumor that you liked her as a child. Su Ling leaned over to Mu Chen and whispered as he chuckled. After hearing this, Mu Chen could not help but bat an eye towards him. He indeed had some sort of relationship with Hong Ling when he was young, but at that age, who would know what love is? He simply wanted to find a playmate. However, his father and Hong Ling's father started to get in a discord quite often for the past few years. The relationship between both sides had gradually grown apart. It was unknown how this kind of rumor came up. Mu Chen could only helplessly shake his head. Then he stared at Liu Che, who had a provocative look on his face. A faint light of spiritual energy began to come out of his body, and he slowly clasped his palms. If you have something to say, then hurry up and say it. Mu Chen looked at the few individuals standing at the high platform nearby. His gaze stopped for a moment on that slender figure. Then he retracted his sight. Even though they are here, but if I want to beat you up, you would still suffer pain on your flesh even if they stop me. Towards the arrogant bastards from the West Branch, he did not like them as well. You! After Liu Che heard Mu Chen's words, his eyes suddenly showed fury. However, just after he shouted out angrily, he noticed that Mu Chen's mouth lowered slightly. The originally soft and brilliant face suddenly had a cold feeling coming out of it. This cold feeling was like a wild and ice-like knife. This feeling was like the awakening of a storm, and it, inadvertently, revealed an extraordinary sharpness. This feeling was absolutely something that an innocent youth would not be able to possess at this age. Liu Che swallowed the cry within his mouth. He stared in surprise at Mu Chen, and his facial color changed. He was definitely slightly afraid of the latter's strength. When Mu Chen defeated Shui Dong from the West Branch Earth class, he was there at the scene. Oh, he really is quite insolent. The seniors of the West Branch Heaven class, who were standing at the high platform, heard these words as well. They immediately began to frown and felt that they lost some face, especially because Hong Ling was present. Hong Ling also looked a little surprised at Mu Chen. She did not imagine that the seemingly gentle boy would also have such a masculine side to him. He seemed to be quite different than the boy back then. A couple of the West Branch Heaven class seniors could not endure it, jumped down the high platform and walked over slowly. Seeing them come over, Su Ling and the others all took a step back and were completely alert. Noticing this, Hong Ling did not stop them. After all, she was a person from the West Branch, and she too wanted to see whether the boy, who seemed ordinary to her before, would truly be dazzling after leaving his childhood. Brother Tong. After Liu Che noticed that these people were walking over, he felt happy. Then his eyes showed off a prideful feeling again as he looked at Mu Chen and the others. Seeing this, Mu Chen frowned slightly. However, there was not much fear within his expression. Although they were Heaven-class seniors, their strength was only at the spiritual movement stage initial phase. If they were to really fight, then they wouldn't be in an advantage either. The leading senior called Brother Tong nodded his head. His eyes stared at Mu Chen. But just when he wanted to speak, a sudden shout rang out from nearby. Tong Guan, you, West Branch Heaven-class people, actually came to the East Branch to bully our Earth-class students. You really don't put the East Academy within your sights, huh? The sudden shout made everybody freeze. After turning their heads around, they could see many figures rapidly coming from nearby. In the very front was a tall girl, Her black clothes were like ink, and it outlined a graceful curve. Her face was extremely pretty, and her long, bluish-black hair was tied into a ponytail. Her long legs were slender and slim, and her beauty was in no way inferior to Hong Ling. At this moment, the girl had a cold expression as she stared at Tongguan and the others. The people behind her also had an unwelcoming expression. "It's Senior Shanner." When Su Ling saw the girl in black clothes, he immediately became excited. A little bit of his innocent, youthful face turned slightly red. This person was known as one of the two flowers of the Northern Spiritual Academy, along with Hong Ling. Their suitors were numerous. He did not imagine that he would actually meet her here. "Oh, so it's Shanner." When Tongguan saw the girl in black clothes, he was also startled. His expression did not seem natural. Not only did Tang Shanner have many suitors within the Northern Spiritual Academy, her strength had also reached the spiritual movement middle phase. Within the heaven class of the Northern Spiritual Academy, she was considered to be quite excellent. The girl named Tang Shanner came to the side of Muen. Her narrow eyes looked at Tongguan, then she looked at Hong Ling, who was at the high platform. The two girls stared at each other unyieldingly, and sparks seemed to fly from their eyes. "Why did you come over here?" Tang Shanner retracted her gaze and coldly asked. "Look at this point. Although we are people from the West Branch, the West Branch is still part of the Northern Spiritual Academy, thus it shouldn't be illegal for us to come over here, right?" Tongguan shrugged and smiled. Tang Shanner issued out a cold humph sound, then she extended her slender hands and patted on Muchen's shoulders. She lowered her pointed chin and said, "Muen is one of the East Branch's people. If you dare to cause trouble for him, then don't blame me for not being polite." As she talked, her black ponytail bounced valiantly, and she seemed to have a style of a big sister. "It seems that your luck with the ladies is quite good." Tongguan smiled at Muen. The smile had a bit of mockery and a bit of jealousy. He also had some thoughts towards Tang Shanner, only that he never obtained any good intentions from her. Having luck with the ladies is also a type of strength. Muen smiled as if he did not hear the mockery within his words. Compared to those guys from the spiritual road, Tongguan was really too inexperienced. From the high platform, Hong Ling looked at Muen. She was somewhat disappointed and retracted her gaze. Was he still so lazy and cowardly like before? "Forget it. We did not come here to cause trouble to you today. We only wanted to inform you of one thing." Seeing that he would not be able to incite Muchen's fury, Tongguan also felt bored. He waved his hand towards Liu Chen, and the latter let out a cold smile and said, "Muen, I am representing Big Brother Liu Yang to deliver you a message. 10 days later, during the competition between the two branches, he will select you as his opponent." Liu Yang! Hearing this name, the color on Su Ling and the others' faces changed. Liu Yang is the true #1 within the West Branch Earth class. It was said that he recently advanced to the spiritual movement stage. Ah, that's right. I'll tell you something else as well. 3 days ago, when Big Brother Liu Yang was tested, they discovered that he possesses a spiritual pulse. Although it is only human level, Liu Chen gloated as he stared at Muen and smiled. Human level spiritual pulse? When these words were said, not only did Su Ling and the others' facial complexion change, even Tang Shanner was slightly moved. Within the entire Northern Spiritual Academy, there will never be more than a handful of students who possess a spiritual pulse. Who would have imagined that Liu Yang actually had it too? Human-level spiritual pulse? Tongguan smacked his lips and gave a pitiful stare at Muen. Liu Yang also had the strength of a spiritual movement initial phase, but if you include the human-level spiritual pulse, it would be difficult for a spiritual movement middle phase to defeat him. It appears that Muen was out of luck. Big Brother Liu Yang said that it is fine if you do not dare to accept it, but just don't show up on that day, then he would not embarrass you. Liu Chen had a strange smile. If Muen did not appear on that day, then his reputation within the East Branch would shatter instantly. "You're bullying him way too much." Tang Shanner frowned as she shouted. "Senior Shanner, you shouldn't blame us. A person should always maintain a low profile. He shouldn't believe that he could be proud because he obtained the qualification to the spiritual road due to luck." Liu Chen said and curled his lips up. "You!" Tang Shanner flew into fury. But just before she headed forward, a hand gripped onto her shoulder. She turned her head around and saw that a brilliant smile appeared on Muchen's face. "Yes, go tell Liu Yang that I will be waiting for him." "How courageous! Then we will wait to see your excellent performance." Liu Chen gave a thumbs up to Muen and grinned. He then laughed as he turned away. With his expression, it was evident that he could not wait until the competition 10 days later. After Liu Chen, Tong Guan, and the others left, Hong Ling, who was on the high platform, stared at him for a while before turning around, leaving as well. Brother Moo, are you really going to accept that Liu Yang's challenge? It won't be easy to deal with him now since he has a spiritual pulse. Su Ling and the others stared at the departing Tongguan and asked in concern. I'll do my best, Mu Chen casually said. Oi, you're so stupid. They were obviously provoking you. Now you must accept the challenge, Tang Shanner said with an irritated voice. Relax, Sister Shanner. I know what I'm doing. Mu Chen smiled. Tang Shanner frowned in puzzlement. Her eyes stared at his innocent face. He seemed to have a bright and gentle smile, but she did not know why she felt something hidden deep inside his eyes. Anyways, I won't be the one to be disgraced when that happens. Tang Shanner let out a sigh and said with dissatisfaction, Sister Shanner seems to be very concerned about me. Mu Chen stared at the irritated yet beautiful face and could not help but laugh as he said that. I don't care if you are dead. Tang Shanner's face flushed for a bit. She immediately batted her eye at Mu Chen and said, I was only worried that you were beaten half to death and will disgrace the East Branch's face. Mu Chen smiled. Tang Shanner's father is also one of the territory lords within the Northern Spiritual Realm and had an excellent relationship with his father. The two families always contacted each other, so his relationship with Tang Shanner was also very good. That's right, there was one news that I heard recently. Tang Shanner waved at Su Ling to move them out of the way, and then her eyes stared at Mu Chen. I heard it from the principal. It seems that the spiritual road has finally ended. Mu Chen's body trembled and he looked up. He let out a breath, so it was finally over. It was said that there were many insane individuals that appeared in the spiritual road this time. Among them, there is one that is extremely terrifying. He seemed to have the heaven-level spiritual pulse that is rarely seen even within 10,000 years. The 5 great academies were fighting so much for him that they were bleeding. The spiritual pulse is divided into 3 types: heaven, earth, and human. It will bring numerous benefits to their training. In general, a person who possesses a spiritual pulse would have a much faster training speed compared to normal individuals. They would also experience many shortcuts. And for so many years, there was never an earth-level spiritual pulse that appeared within the Northern Spiritual Academy, not to mention even a heaven-level spiritual pulse. From this, you can see just how rare a spiritual pulse is. Tang Shanner stuck out her red tongue and was extremely cute and lovely. A heaven-level spiritual pulse. I've never seen one before. As expected, the ones that participated in the spiritual road are all insane people. That's right. You also participate in the spiritual road. Do you know who that person is? He should be Ji Xuan, right? Mu Chen said in a faint voice. It was a name that was etched deeply into his memory. You know him? Tang Shanner said in surprise. Yes, I know him. He is indeed quite an amazing person. Mu Chen smiled, lowered his eyes and said, I nearly killed him. Tang Shanner's beautiful eyes widened up. She stared at the innocent face in front of her that suddenly turned cold. She stammered as she asked, Is that true? It's a lie. You actually believed in it? I was a person who was kicked out in the middle. How could I compare with the superb individual that the 5 great academies were fighting over to get? Mu Chen's cold expression vanished instantly. He stared at Tang Shanner with a surprised expression and could not resist laughing. Tang Shanner bit her teeth in resentment. She seemed to want to bite him twice, but she still endured it. She said with a sigh, You only advanced to the spiritual movement stage. You haven't learned any spiritual arts yet, right? I heard that Liu Yang has already been practicing. Spiritual arts, huh? I will learn some when I go back this time. It's just the right time. My dad told me to find him after I advanced to the spiritual movement stage. Mu Chen smiled as he spoke. Yes, then I'm leaving first. Tang Shanner nodded. Mu Chen's father was still one of the territory lords within the Northern Spiritual Realm. He should be able to prepare a decent spiritual art for Mu Chen. Thus, she did not say much more and waved her hand. Her ponytail swung as she twisted her body to leave. That's right. Tang Shanner walked gracefully for a bit, then turned her head back to stare at Mu Chen. She thought for a while and said, If you do not think that you have any chance of winning, how about I beat that guy Liu Yang for you? Although his big brother Liu Mubai would be a bit troublesome, can't you believe in me a bit more? Mu Chen said helplessly. How did she even think of such a method? You fail to understand a person's kindness, Tang Shanner said angrily. If other people in the Northern Spiritual Academy wanted her help, she would refuse to do so. But yet, why would this guy be the only one to have a detestable expression? After thinking up to this point, she stormed away in anger. Muen watched Tang Shanner's moving figure disappearing. He also let out a smile and immediately muttered, "Since the spiritual road has ended, she should have entered the 5 great academies as well, right? I wonder which one she has entered." Thinking back when he had to leave, among the lush forest, a girl with long silver hair used a pair of green eyes and watched him quietly. "I will wait for you at the 5 great academies. If you do not come..." Within the girl's slender hand, she was holding a sword. She lifted it up until it was in front of his chest and gently poked him at the location of his heart. "I will kill him, but..." The girl stared at him with her eyes as clear as glass. "I do not like people who readily admit their failure. But this time, it can't be considered as your loss. At least I liked it." The gentle wind blew and raised the girl's proud and bright silver hair. On her cold, white face, a slight tint of red appeared. Although it was faint, it was still dazzlingly beautiful. "So you must come." The Northern Spiritual Realm is split into 9 territories. Each one is controlled by a lord, and between these 9 territories, they are either allied or oppose each other. That is also how the Northern Spiritual Realm has always maintained the situation of 9 territories. Aside from the 9 territories, there is still a powerful force to be reckoned with in the Northern Spiritual Realm. That is the Northern Spiritual Academy. However, compared to the 9 territories that cause many disputes, the Northern Spiritual Realm has always maintained neutral. They do not have any ambition for competing over the land. They would only stick to their area and attract students over. It is because of this that the Northern Spiritual Academy has such a high status within the Northern Spiritual Realm. And the Northern Spiritual Academy also holds the spots which will allow them to enter the 5 great academies. This is something that all the various lords want, because they all understood, although they had a decent position within the Northern Spiritual Realm, but they could not compare to the 5 great academies. Thus, they would send their children, once they are of age, to the Northern Spiritual Academy to train in order to obtain these spots. Therefore, the force that one must not offend within the Northern Spiritual Realm is the Northern Spiritual Academy, Moo Territory, Moo City. The moment that Muen walked out of the transverse spiritual array, a bustling sound entered his ears. He looked at the prospering Moo City and let out a slight smile. The Moo City is the main city within the Moo Territory, and his father, Moo Feng, is the Moo Territory's lord. "Little Lord? Little Lord, you came back from the Northern Spiritual Academy. Hurry and report to the Territory Lord." Near the transverse spiritual array, there were a few Moo Territory guards protecting it. The instant that they saw the boy walking out of the spiritual array, they were surprised for a moment, but soon they suddenly rejoiced and came over. "I've troubled all of you, but it's fine if I go back myself." Muen directed a smile toward the guards. He grew up in this place and was familiar with many people. Although he was the son of the Territory Lord, his attitude was excellent. Thus, he was quite welcome within the Moo Territory. He said farewell to the passionate guards and flew off toward the center of the city. Shortly after, a large estate appeared within his eyes. In front of the estate, there were 2 large words, Moo Estate. It was evident that the Moo Estate was heavily guarded. However, Muen did not care about it all and directly ran inside. The guards also let out a warm smile after they recognized him and bowed down to him. Following that, they no longer cared about it. "Dad!" Muen charged into the estate and stormed into the living room. He then noticed that there were 2 figures. On the seat of the host was a man with a black robe. He had an upright body and a determined expression on his face. The only thing that made him look slightly old was the white hair floating out of his head. But you could see vaguely that he must have been a handsome person when he was young. That person is Muen's father, Moo Feng. He is also the lord of the Moo Territory. At the right-hand seat of Moo Feng, there was a slim, middle-aged man. Within that man's pupil was a hint of trouble, and he seemed to be a little bit dark. His tiny lips revealed a stern atmosphere, but that stern atmosphere dispersed a lot after he saw Muen rushing into the living room. Between his 2 brows, a gentle smile surfaced. "It's fine if you come back. Why did you have to shout?" Moo Feng placed down the things in his hand and looked at the boy that came in through the door. He could not help but scold him gently. However, there was warmth coming out from the depths of his eyes. "Territory Lord, it is rare for little Moo to come back. It is naturally that we would feel happy. The skinny middle-aged man smiled as he spoke. It seems like only Uncle Joe understands. Moochen sat down on a chair and grinned at the skinny man. Through the way they spoke, you could tell that they were quite close. Uncle Joe is named Joe Ye. He is also a lifetime friend of his father. Back then, he followed his father and killed within the northern spiritual realm and finally helped and supported him to become the Lord of the Moo Territory. He also watched as Moochen grew up, and so he has always treated Moochen as his own child. The feelings they shared between them were naturally superb. Huh? You advanced into the spiritual movement stage? Mu Feng smiled and said in surprise when he looked at Moochen. Hearing this, Zhou Ye also looked at Moochen in surprise. As expected, he could detect the spiritual aura being emitted within Moochen's body. I advanced into it a while back then. Moochen nodded his head. Talking about this matter was a bit dull. There wasn't many exciting things about it. It seems that you came back for spiritual arts then? Mu Feng smiled. Only after you advance into the spiritual movement stage will you be able to learn spiritual arts. And by learning spiritual arts, you will then be able to release the true power of the spiritual energy. I have to fight against someone 10 days later. It might be a little troublesome if I do not learn spiritual arts. Moochen curled his lips and explained the matter about Liu Yang's challenge when Mu Feng and Zhou Ye threw a suspicious gaze towards him. None of the people from the Liu family are any good. After Zhou Ye heard about it, his eyes became a bit vicious and he said, "The Liu family has become more and more arrogant these years. Although the Moo Territory can be considered as the #1 in the northern spiritual realm, do they think that the Moo Territory is weak?" Mu Feng let out a smile without care and said, "I can't imagine that Liu Yang would actually have a spiritual pulse. The Liu family truly is blessed." "It's only a human-level spiritual pulse," Zhou Ye said. However, he frowned a bit as he said this. He looked at Mu Chen and said that Liu Yang's strength is also at the spiritual movement stage initial phase. With the help of the spiritual pulse, it wouldn't be easy for someone in the spiritual movement stage middle phase to deal with him. "Little Moo, do you think you can do it?" Moochen smiled. He had already attacked someone with the heaven-level spiritual pulse. Why would he care about a mere human-level spiritual pulse? Compared to the insane individuals within the spiritual road, Liu Yang appears to be too inexperienced. Mu Feng looked at the innocent face of Moochen. He could feel that his son changed after he came back from the spiritual road. Although this little guy would seem gentle and modest, Mu Feng was still able to detect a cold and sharp aura hidden underneath that gentle and innocent face due to his experiences of killing people. That sharp aura was like a dormant dragon. It's fine when it does not roar, but once it explodes out, it will definitely finish everything swiftly. That change made Mu Feng a little bit surprised and also a little bit pleased. He was greatly concerned about his only son. As for why Mu Chen would be kicked out halfway through the spiritual road, he was puzzled, but he did not ask for more. He believed that his son would not do anything that would disappoint him. "Let's go. I'll bring you over to select some spiritual arts." Mu Feng stood up and waved his hand to Mu Chen. Then he walked towards the backyard. After Mu Chen greeted Zhou Ye, he swiftly followed. He followed Mu Feng and passed through the backyard. In the end, they stopped near a heavily guarded stone door. A forceful spiritual aura spread out from Mu Feng's palms, turned into rays of light and filled the stone door. Behind Mu Feng, Mu Chen was able to feel the forceful spiritual energy fluctuations. He could not help but lick his mouth. Dad is indeed a powerful individual at the spirit stage. The fluctuations were actually this strong. Within the training, you will first start off at the sensing stage. You will sense the spiritual aura within the world. Following that is the spiritual movement stage. At this level, you will be able to absorb the spiritual aura into the body. After the spiritual movement stage is the spiritual rotation stage. You will be able to condense the spiritual aura within the body into a cycle. The degree of spiritual energy would far surpass the spiritual movement stage. Passing through the spiritual rotation stage, you will reach the spirit stage. This could be considered as the dividing level. Mu Feng is at this level. Once you stepped into the spirit stage, you could be considered to be a powerhouse within the northern spiritual realm. The powerhouses at this level have battle power far beyond the spiritual rotation stage. This is because you will be able to obtain a unique ability after reaching the spirit stage. It is the ability to ingest a beast spirit. The so-called beast spirit is the spirit of the million beasts of the world. Once you ingest it, you will be able to obtain some power from the spiritual beast. By combining it with your own spiritual energy, your combat strength will naturally soar. Within this heaven and earth, there is a beast record. It divides the numerous spiritual beasts within the world into two rankings, heaven and earth. And the spiritual beast spirit that Mu Feng had ingested was one that he found due to a lucky coincidence. It is known as the Dragonfire Bird. Within the earth ranking of the beast record, it is ranked 85. During the years when Mu Feng traveled throughout the northern spiritual realm and becoming the Moo Territory Lord, the spirit of the Dragonfire Bird has contributed a lot. Creak. While Mu Chen was distracted, the heavy stone door slowly opened up and the heavy creaking sound rang out. After the stone door opened up, a smell of dust rushed into their face. Mu Feng fanned using his hand and walked in. Mu Chen also hastened to keep up. A chamber appeared after passing through the stone door. Within the chamber, there were many dim firelights and rows of stone shelves began to appear in front of one's eyes. On the stone shelves, many scrolls of scripts began to flash faintly. Mu Chen's eyes shone as he looked at the various scripts within the chamber. It was obvious that they were all spiritual arts. Mu Feng clapped his hand. He looked at the chamber and stared at the deepest part for a moment. Then, he immediately said with a faint smile, "All the stocks of spiritual arts that your father has are here. You can pick any of them. I want to see which one you will select." That wraps up the content for today's episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the next episode. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.